So you're recording now?
So, yeah, we're recording. What I think would be cool, Joel. First, if you could just maybe explain a little bit of like how you got to this, like where you're at now with helping people with their fears, kind of like what your background is and how you got to the point in your life where this is a topic that you're passionate about and helping other people with, and then we'll get into the info.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I've share a similar journey to many of you, where essentially I've spent the last decade, more than a decade, bouncing between things, trying to figure out what was the right place for me, and never feeling like I was able to go all in. No, never feeling like I could succeed in whatever is what I was doing. So I would, make a little bit of progress, and then I would uh, sabotage in some way. So I've been all over the place. I'm from New Zealand originally, and I've spent the last decade in Europe, mostly between Germany and London. And so I started out in a very much like a hands-on, doing house refurbishments, building, that sort of thing, and then to mechanical engineering in Germany, and then property investing and building a property business in London. And no matter where I was, I seemed to come up against the same problems, that nothing felt right, that I always felt like I was holding myself back in some way, or I was focusing on all of the problems around me, all of the things that were getting in my way. And it took me a long time to start to shift my focus to figuring out, well, like, why is it that, we can know what we're supposed to do and we still don't take action? And because that's literally been something that I've struggled with all my life, which is like, okay, I know I should be doing X, and yet I'm not doing it, right? I uh, I go and do some property training with some other people. We start out at the exact same point. I have a little bit of success and they have massive success. It's like, well, what's the differentiating factor there? What makes the difference? And it's through that journey that I got really interested in psychology, in neurolinguistic programming, and understanding, like, how do we perceive the world? How do we think? Why do we act in the way that we do? What is perception, and how can we shift it so that we can essentially create the reality that we want, rather than running from things all of the time. So that's kind of, you know what's led me to do what I do now, which is I'm also building an online business, and I now help entrepreneurs primarily help to regulate their emotions, regulate their nervous system, understand how their brains work. So, because essentially, I come from the philosophy that if we can master and control our internal states, then we can control, or at least better react to external circumstances. And I really believe that the answer to everything that we want to have in life comes from, developing ourselves on the inside, and getting our minds aligned with what we want, getting our emotions aligned in our nervous system, and all of those things. So yeah, that's perhaps a bit of a long story there, but that's where I come to, with what I'm doing now.
What are some of the main things that you're helping entrepreneurs with that you've helped people in the past with when it comes to like their fears? Like, what are some of the main things that you've seen yourself or that they have done that have helped them overcome these fears and actually take action, like you were talking about?
So the biggest one that I've seen, is procrastination, and procrastination takes different forms. But essentially, working with guys that, like, I had a client just recently. He wanted to expand his business from his marketing agency from Malaysia into the US, and he took a few steps in that direction, and then just kind of backpedaled and didn't follow through. And he knew that he was capable. He could understand that he was making excuses, but he wasn't able to get himself to take those actions. And I think that is the biggest thing for most of us.
Yeah.
Either it's either that we're not taking the actions that we know we need to, that would actually help us grow our businesses or improve our lives in some way. Or the other big aspect I think is emotional regulation, like actually getting ourselves to enjoy things, because you can kind of beat yourself into submission and beat yourself into doing things in the short term, but it's not a very nice way of building a life. And so I work with people to not only get them to do things that they need to be doing, but also to enjoy more of the process. Because I think that we can have both. I don't think that as entrepreneurs we have to be. Yeah, it's funny. I look at Mosey sometimes and I think, gosh, he's achieved so much, but he's under a lot of pressure all the time, and I wonder just how
Yeah.
much, just how much he's actually enjoying the process. I think the carrot and the stick are great tools to have, and some people are relying too heavily on the stick at times. So yeah.
So what would you say, let's say for that guy that wanted to like relocate his business, but you're afraid? Like what are some of the most powerful things we can do in those situations that will help us go from okay, this is what I need to do and I'm not doing it to okay, I actually like did those things.
So the broad answer I would say is a big part of what stops us is the identity that we have. And I think that a lot of the time, what we really need is to shift our identity from what we currently have to what we were in the past. Because a lot of us are living in the emotional past of, how we were raised, and to adopt an identity and an emotional reality that is aligned with the goals that we have in the future. So for this guy in particular, there were multiple things, but being able to shift his identity from somebody who, because he was focused on the problems, right? He was focused on like, I'm not doing this. Here's why I'm not doing it. I keep making these excuses. And when you have that behavior, what you're doing is you're reinforcing in your mind that you're somebody who makes excuses and doesn't take action.
Mm, yeah.
And when you do that, you're not getting any closer to actually taking action, right? Awareness is a big part of it, but if you leave it at awareness, all you're doing is focusing on the things that you don't like about yourself, and that just reinforces it. So yeah, so this identity shift, and I mean we can get into sort of how we can go about that, but identity shift and also changing the voices that we have in our heads. This is kind of all goes along with identity shift, but for him, for example, he had some fears and some voices and some images in his mind from his childhood, from his mother actually, that every time he went to take a step forward and to do something that was a little bit outside of his comfort zone, an image of his mum popped into his mind, criticizing and looking at ways to turn it against him, and so he
Mm,
was being controlled by these past memories. Or this it wasn't even necessarily an image, a memory. It was a fabricated um, movie or memory, and so working with those really helps to get us out of the past and into the present and into the future.
so let's say like in that example, what is a better identity shift that he should or maybe did end up taking on versus like, okay, I'm someone that makes excuses, I'm someone that can't do this, or I have this image of my mom in my head. Like what's a better not necessarily how did he do it, but like what's a better identity shift that he could have had or should have had or maybe even did have?
I mean, the simple answer is obviously one that is it's changing how we feel about ourselves into somebody who is capable of the success that we say we want, right? Because so often he was in the case where he was saying he wanted to expand into the US. He was saying he was capable, but he wasn't feeling that way. He was feeling like this is super risky. I don't really know how to do this. I'm not really capable. I'm going to be criticized because of it. Um, so having the awareness of who we are at the moment, what we're doing well, what we're doing not so well, and then shifting it into okay, what are the patterns of behavior that we need to adopt in order to make this reality? Take the next step. So usually it's the case of well, being somebody who is willing to take the risk, courageous, um, being somebody who is okay to fail, being somebody who's okay with looking stupid. Um, and there's a process, there are different processes to achieving that, but that's a big part of it.
So let's say for this guy, you want to relocate your business, but you're like, man, I can't do it because of this. So you have this identity as like, I'm not maybe strong enough, I'm not capable enough, which kind of reinforces I'm someone that makes excuses, I'm someone that can't do these types of things. And then you make the identity shift to I am somebody that can make this move. I am a successful business owner. I am all the things. How do you then go from one mindset to the next mindset to then actually doing it? Or is it just as simple as once you have this mindset, you just got to do it?
You, yeah, I mean,
It cut off a little bit.
sorry, you
There you
there?
go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. See, it's glitching out. Okay, good. One of the things that I try to help with it is firstly removing the things in our past that keep us stuck. And so that's those the fears around that we've adopted as we were raised, the protection mechanisms. This is the other thing to understand is a lot of the time the fears that we have, they're parts of ourselves that are protecting us, and it's not that it's something that's faulty. It's something that we had this mechanism that we learned as children that has helped us in situations in the past that is now not serving us anymore, but we keep operating from that place. And so a big part of what I try to do is to shift from that being stuck in the past and using past programming to using methods that are appropriate for the situation we're in. What I do find is that the thing is when you get your subconscious mind to approach tasks and to view the world in the way that is actually conducive to your goals, the next steps that you need to take start to become clear. It's not like you you don't have to consciously think of what they are. They sort of start to appear in your awareness
Yeah.
because your perception is trained to spot the opportunities, and it's trained to naturally gravitate towards these things that are going to serve you. So it's the problem is that so many people focus on like, well, I've got to learn a new system. I've got to learn a new skill, but a new system or a new skill doesn't really help you if you don't have the programming to actually take those actions and to implement what you're
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are ways that we can both gradually as well as rapidly change our programming in order to stop operating from the past and start operating in the future and in the present, or the present and the future.
I like that. Let's do this then. Let's go ahead and open it up to like questions, and then we can kind of see some of this like with actual examples, like from some of you guys. So, who, either Joel, you can call on someone, or whoever wants to go. I guess you could just raise your hand. Joel, calling you.
Yeah, well, let's open it up. Does anybody have something in particular? We went around the room at the beginning. Does anybody want to sort of go into that a little bit further with what they originally talked about? Reba, yeah, go for it.
I do it. And I don't have a ton of time either. I have like 15 minutes. Um, so I shared going from corporate to entrepreneurship, and then you shared kind of not knowing what's coming. What you said earlier. I don't have my notebook. Usually I write. So I usually would have it word for word. I'll watch the replay. And so I'm glad to. I guess my question is, am I asking a question here? Or are you talking to me, asking me questions?
Ask a question, yeah, please, or just share anything that you felt like sharing, following on what we've just talked about.
Okay, so you mentioned like identity and shifting that identity. Um, I guess what steps do you take? I think we always hear the things of just take the actions and they'll fall into place. Um, your head shake is saying no, but it's what you hear all the time. Take the actions and it'll fall into place. But I think, and what happens is exactly what you said. Like we'll do the pattern and then we'll we'll pull back, or we'll stop. So what is a way that can actually do a small step, or maybe it's a small belief, I'm not sure, that can help keep us on track, for where we wanna go? Is
Yeah,
that
good
loaded?
question. Yeah, no, no, that's good. That's good. So I'll do my best to answer. So firstly, what you were saying is, I'll just take the action and things will fall into place. Well, there's truth in that, of course, but it doesn't help you very much if you're not able to take the action, which is why, so often, it's like Nike, just do it. And it's like, well, that's great if you can do it, but if you can't do it, you got to learn something else. And the good thing is it doesn't, you know, just because you can't just do it doesn't mean you can't do something that is going to make it easier for you to take the action in the future. And that's what I find so useful about the the stuff that I learn about and that I teach and talk about, is that we can we can train our minds in ways that lowers the friction to taking that action. And so one method would be, I mean, I don't want to go into a deep dive too much, because it requires a little bit more hands-on experience. But let's just say, for example, when you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, you might not be consciously aware of it, but likely what is happening is, when you think about that process, or you think about that decision, what you're likely going to be doing is thinking of all of the decisions that might come after that decision, all of the responsibility, the things that you have to do, the things that might go wrong. And so you're you're in a point where you're not just making a decision in the moment, you're making a decision throughout the course of the next period of your life. And when you're trying to make that decision without the answers, of course it becomes overwhelming, right? Like, how are you
It's
going to make
fair.
that decision, right? Now, one of the ways that you can start to lower that friction, so that you can get to a point where you're comfortable taking that first step, is there's two things. One, it is shrinking that image of all of you basically have to take the energy, the emotion, out of everything that you're thinking about, out of that decision. And we can do that through submodality work, which is from neurolinguistic programming. We won't go into the full exercise here, but for example, if you think of that decision and you start to pay attention in your mind as to what you're seeing, what you'll likely see is you'll start to see a big image in front of you with all of these things happening, and it feels overwhelming and it's really bright. And what you can start to do is, once you pay attention to how you're representing that decision and that future in your mind, if it's something that is overwhelming to you, is you can take some of the color out, and you just imagine in your mind when you see this image. And this is great for anybody out there, for any of you guys who has something that terrifies you, is to first notice how it's represented in your mind. What does that image look like? And when you have that image, imagine turning the color down. Imagine that color in that image draining out of the image. Imagine it turning into black and white or grayscale. You can think about shrinking the image, moving it further away. All of these things will start to take the emotional charge out of that decision. And it sounds, if you haven't been exposed to this kind of work before, I know Bernie probably has with Tony Robbins, but it sounds perhaps a little bit crazy, but you can try it. Try it in your free time. Take an image. It can be a good, if an image of something that terrifies you is too much. Take a really great image, a memory, something that you love, and play around with the color. And you'll find if you turn it black and white, you'll probably lose a lot of the positive emotion in it. So I don't recommend doing it that way that way too much. But
Okay.
we can, the point I suppose I'm trying to make here is that emotions are triggered by how we represent them in our minds. And we can change how we represent the emotions, both good and bad. And when we do, we change how we feel about them. And that works for imagined stuff and it works for memories. If we have a bad memory, we can change how we represent that memory in our mind and we can change how we feel about it. Same with a future. If you're not motivated, for example, well, you can develop a clear, bright, enticing image or movie in your mind, and it will literally change how you
That's
feel
true. Yeah.
about that. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question. I know I kind of went on for a bit there, but perhaps you can ask any further follow-up questions if you've got.
No. No, it does, 'cause one of my strongest traits is being very futuristic, like, trying to line everything out in my brain,
Mm.
and then for me, I think if I've gotta put things in, like, my words, like, I'm putting a story to things, which is heightening my emotion, and so I've gotta kinda look at that picture in my head, like you said, hit the color out of it, and then that will kinda change my emotion, that will change the story that I'm putting to whatever it is I'm making really big and broad and bring it down. Is that
Yeah, yeah, and this is what we all do, right? We are meaning-making machines. We just create stories, and we create a story in our head about something that's happened or something that will happen, and then we believe it, and we treat that as fact, as reality. It's
Yeah.
the bizarrest thing.
that's fair.
But when you understand that that's actually what we do, and that with whatever you're thinking about, you are creating a narrative, you're creating a story, then you can start to notice, well, is the story that I'm telling myself about this particular thing, is it helping me? Like, is it serving me to, if I want to, if you say, for example, consciously you state, well, I want to become an entrepreneur, I want to leave my job. Um, but then when you start to think about it, you come up with all of these reasons as to why you're not capable of doing it, and etc. Well, you can ask yourself, interesting. I noticed that I'm making these excuses. I'm telling myself a specific story about why I can't do that. Is this helping me? Is that a smart thing to do? And you can then start to shift the narrative. You just start to tweak little details. From I'm not capable of doing that to I'm on the path to making it possible, or I can't achieve X to I haven't achieved X yet, right? And to just the one thing I really encourage anybody to do is to become more aware of how the story that you're telling yourself about who you are and what you're capable of, as well as your past and your future. Become aware of the thoughts that you have in your head. Become aware of all of the imagery that you're using, because that is essentially the fundamental shift that you need to make, is to start seeing yourself, and there's a process to this, but start seeing yourself as somebody who can deal with any challenge that comes your way, to start seeing yourself as somebody who's able to make things work, who's already made, you've gotten to the point that you are at right now because of an immense amount of skill and tenacity and courage, all of the things that you probably feel you don't have in abundance of, in order to make the change that you want to make. So by recognizing all of the things that you have already, and building up a strong sense of that identity in your mind, you start to equip yourself better to be able to tackle the next challenges.
I like that. Okay. I took up a lot of time, but I think I've got it. So you've outlined the problem for me and the steps to solve that problem realistically for me. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
work towards it.
there are a lot of obviously there are a lot of things you can do. The one thing I would say is to start out with is just start to pay attention to your thoughts, and start to question, have some curiosity around what you're telling yourself. And if you pay attention and you start to go, oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling afraid in this moment, or I'm anxious about this decision. I wonder why that is.
It's good.
As soon as you have, as soon as you're able to, you're creating a gap, you're creating space between a reaction or an emotional feeling and a conscious decision. And if you create that space, then you create an opportunity to choose otherwise, to make a decision. So start with being curious about the way that your brain works, without the judgment. You don't need to be like, oh, uh, I'm I'm so stupid for thinking this way. Of course, I'm capable of this, because if you're layering on negative emotion on top of it, that's going to be detrimental rather than helpful.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Very welcome.
It was good, bro.
There any anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask, or any would like any further clarification on anything I just talked about?
I'd like to thank you, Joe, for reminding me of what I know and should know. And literally, I joined the call because of the hook, what Dee described. Um, and for me, it operates on two levels, because one of the what my current business is teaching kids math, and the number one problem is they believe they can't, and so I've got to teach the mindset. And with me, the what and Alex and Mo talks about this, shiny objects. There's always enough things that I'm comfortable with that need to be done that I'll do, and avoid the things that, and I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention to why am I avoiding that other thing and doing the thing that and does need to be done, but that's not the thing that is the most important thing to do. And I always reflect about there was a sales guy. I used to work for a big company. There was the top salesman of the company. And I remember he had a sign in front of his desk. These days when people worked in offices, he had a sign that said to him, "What is the single thing that you can do right now to advance or to move the needle or whatever it was to be successful?" And then it says, "Why aren't you doing that thing now?" Okay. And that made an impact on me. And what I'm doing in the procrastination is doing lots of things that need to be done, but not the thing. But the question is, the way the brain works, it's very easy to deceive yourself that what that thing is. Okay. So when my wife says, take out the garbage, that's not right now, because I can legitimately say, well, that's not the most important thing in our lives right now, but maybe it is. Okay. And the question of, so to make my wife happy, okay, that in fact is the most important thing, but I can make a million excuses of why, what I'm doing right now is more important than that. And that's the question is, so it's really so what you're saying, what I'm getting is making that space and thinking about what is it that I need to do, and make that space. But then there's the question of figuring out what is that thing. And sometimes, and it's easy to deceive ourselves. So how do you get around that problem? How do you get around the problem of deceiving yourself of what that thing is?
Yeah, yeah. I mean that is a huge problem, and let me just think about that for a moment to see what's the best angle to come at that from. So I think firstly, it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile thinking about the philosophy or the values and the principles that you approach life with, because a lot of the time we are operating from sort of autopilot, right? We have a set of programs and something happens and it goes click, run, and we're not in that moment able to choose our behavior. And if we're afraid of things, then we're always going to be just choosing, without even thinking about it, we're going to be choosing the easy option. One of the things that I really like to do is to reframe like, for example, what does fear mean? And to instead of, because we've got 200,000 years of programming that says, like, if we feel afraid, we should run, right? And the amygdala, the part of the brain with the fight or flight response, is much older than our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain. And so it's hardwired in. And so our fear response is always going to be faster than our cognitive, our human conscious process. And so we have to realize that we have to kind of work with that fear response instead of saying, well, fear is a pointless thing that is getting in the way of me achieving what I want to get done. To recognize that it is there, it plays a role, and we can't brush it under the rug. We can't get it out of the way entirely. So what I like to do, for example, is to see fear. I think Jordan Peterson talks about this really well, as he says that what is it? How'd you get this the right way around? Every pot of gold has a dragon guarding it, and the dragon is fear. Everything that we want to achieve in life is hidden, is protected by something that we have to confront. And the idea that the things that we are afraid of are in fact therefore the most valuable, because if there wasn't something of value there wouldn't be something guarding it, is something that I find really, useful to remind myself of, to say, okay, well, this fear here, it's not something to be avoided, but it's something that is really useful because it's telling me, it's signaling to me, here is something of value to you, and you can achieve that, you can reap the rewards if you tackle that fear. And I think that reframing of what fear is, what fear signifies, rather than seeing fear as a signifier of danger, seeing fear as an opportunity in disguise, as well as that awareness that we talked about beforehand, allows us, and it is a training process to train ourselves to just pause in that moment, to when we notice a response, an initial response, to go, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Isn't this interesting? What could be the opportunity here? And then to make the decision. And of course, that all requires you to also know who you are and to know exactly what it is that you're aiming at. And that's a big part of what I think entrepreneurs need help with, and what I help people with as well, is to understand themselves, right? To understand what it is that they value. Because once you know what you value, and you can recognize that what you value is hidden behind the fear that you're experiencing, well, it becomes so much more attractive to be able to confront that fear. So I'm not actually sure if I answered your question. So sorry,
You did.
Ben.
That was super powerful, because I think what you're saying is the way to identify the thing that's most important is identify the thing that you're most afraid of, because that's probably the most valuable thing. The thing you're putting off and the thing you're most afraid of is a perfect way of it's like a signpost. That's the thing. That's very powerful.
Exactly that. And I think our conscience does this to us in a couple of ways. So one is the fear. What you are most afraid of hides the biggest reward. And this is a little bit off subject, but for any of you out there is trying to find some meaning or something to do that feels worthwhile with your time, is I think that the things that bother us the most in life, these problems, these things that crop up that we can't help but be called to notice, that is our conscience calling us to say, hey, here is something of, here is your problem, right? This is your challenge to overcome, and to see problems not as something that oh my God, we've just got to, here's something that's blocking my path, but rather to see them again in this light of, this is my conscience calling me to spot something that is specifically for me, that aligns with my specific set of skills. Like, this problem here, maybe this problem is here because I'm perfectly situated to either overcome it in that moment, or to develop myself in a way that is necessary to overcome that challenge. And I like that reframing because it gives us, it starts to work with the way that we view the world, right? It's a narrative that we can get behind, and we see the world in the form of a story. So we might as well tell ourselves a story that serves us, and that's one way that I find that works really well, both for myself, and I've seen that work for other people as well.
You have time to take one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Claudio,
Can I
Daisy?
go very quickly? If you want to go, Daisy, I'll be a gentleman. So
We can't hear you. I think. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my internet just went out, so sorry, but so that's why I had to go out and come back in. So basically, hearing everything that you said, um, I'll say that the awareness, I guess, was more of what I was paying attention to. The saying, be aware of what the thoughts are that could be preventing me from doing what I need to do, because I know the thing is, and which I'm thinking now is probably a fear, is that a lot of things sometimes I get in this, and like you say, coming from childhood and things that occur or somebody said or whatever, that's still in your subconscious mind that you're not really aware of, that I know because I guess growing up and stuff and whatever and trying to do things, there was always this thing of I don't know enough, or I gotta know more, or I need to know what I'm doing before I do something. And so I know I'm finding myself doing my best to say I know more than I think I know, or something like that, to try to keep me going. Because otherwise, if I don't do that, it'll turn around and make me say, don't do it because you really don't know what you're doing. And so, yeah. So that's why I listen is like being aware of, and then try to, how they say, figure out what it is re-question it or something about, what else it is that I need to do or get rid of. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
The awareness is the first step, and once you have that, then you have choice. And I think that that's the really important thing. Fear takes away choice. When we're afraid, we just act on autopilot. When we can stop and pause and be aware of how we're feeling and how we're behaving, then we gain the choice to choose. Now you might still choose to turn a run or not pursue something, but at least it becomes your choice rather than something that's happening on autopilot based on past programming and past events. So yeah, you're doing everything right there. Being aware, being able to then change, you're already there, starting to change the narrative and starting to talk to yourself and to say, well, I am capable, or this, look at all of these things that I do already know. And you can go and look at all of the evidence of the things that you've already accomplished. That works really well as well, to say, well, I have done X, Y, Z. I have all of these resources. I've gotten to the point in my life having accomplished immense amounts of things. So, what is the likelihood here that I can tackle one more thing? And that helps. And then you look at what the smallest step in that direction is that you can take. The one of the things, I don't know, Claudia, did you want to ask another question? I wanted to give you guys a couple of resources to use to go away with before we end up, but we've got we've got enough time for another question.
I want, but I have an hard stop in 3 minutes. What I can say is that this session is amazing, and it's going very deep. A lot of emotions, a lot of thinking in my head is going on. Possibly, you cannot answer because I will leave now. Maybe I will watch the recording. But something I'm noticing as you were talking is that I'm seeing a pattern in what I do based on what I said at the beginning. It's like, I think it's going deep, as you mentioned, in my childhood. because I had a weird history. I will not go into details, but I want to fix problems. I'm used to fix problems, and there's a problem I never fixed. Yeah, and every time that, for example, in my business, in my professional lives, I fix something, so I get it worked. It's like, okay, now it's working. What can I change to break it? Like,
Mhm.
so that, I can make it more difficult, so that I can. And so I arrived to a point, for example, I got a YouTube channel at the beginning, 50,000 subscribers, I deleted it. Or another things like that on Instagram, I did the same. Or I work for a company and I drive it to the edge, or I talk to the VP to make things uncomfortable, then it went fine, but I'm always trying to not sabotage me, but make it harder. And now working alone, I'm seeing the pattern, like, okay, it's working. I'm getting clients. Okay, if I do this, will it still work? And then, of course, I change something and I break it. It's weird. So I'm not sure how I do this, but I don't want to do it anymore, of course.
Yeah, well, that would be something that would require a little more investigation. But there are things that we can do for the conscious mind as well as the subconscious mind to not only delve into the root causes, but also just put into place methods that stop you from doing that, or that free you from that programming. So we can't get into it today, obviously. That is
But
more
thanks a lot.
process.
Very, very deep conversation.
Yeah.
Another thing for you guys is like, don't forget that like that Joel is a part of the community. So feel free
Yeah.
to reach out to him. I'm sure we'll talk about like the different stuff he offers, but don't be shy to just reach out to him, follow up questions or anything like this. So
Yeah, I also, just on that note, just before Claudio goes, but Claudio, if you want to book I do have the option just to book a free 30-minute call with me, and we can go into to that in a bit more detail. So you're more than welcome. I can DM you the link or whatever.
I already joined your community, Joe.
let's go.
Thanks, man.
Let's go.
As always, D, somebody else, I want to say to D, somebody else that you introduced me to that's been valuable to me. So it all comes from Undeterred and from D. So
I'm blessed to meet such amazing people around the world. Like Joel actually hit me up and he was like, bro, like I'm in Budapest, and we went out to dinner and we were talking about what he was doing, and I was like, bro, like we need that in the community because that's something all of us struggle with, you know what I mean? And the way that he was like, he speaks very well, as you guys can tell, like just the way he was articulating it, I'm like, all right, we need to have this live, but also something that people can refer in the future. So I appreciate you, Joel, man. This has been great. Maybe now is a good time to share like the resources you mentioned, and then also like how people can work with you, different things that you offer, like those types of things.
Yeah, well, firstly, D, I really appreciate you opening up this opportunity. It's the whole reason I do this is because I suffer with these things. I have suffered with these issues all my life, and I know that there are so many people out there that have so much to offer the world if they could only get out of their own way. And
Man, hate to see it.
yeah, it really, I can feel it already coming over me. The emotion that I feel when I think about the amount of people, the amount of talented, caring people out there who are holding themselves back from what they're meant to do because of these niggly little problems that turn into big obstacles. And so any opportunity that I have to share the little that I know and the things that I've found to be really useful for me and people that I've worked with, I'm always grateful for that opportunity. So thank you for that.
We appreciate you, bro.
The resource. So one of the things I wanted to just give you guys to go away with is, and Bernie will probably know this, it's also something that Tony Robbins does, and to a degree, is the idea. We've talked a lot about what stops us and how we can reframe that, but I wanted to give you a very simple technique that you can use to help develop a state of resourcefulness and of motivation. But motivation is such a generic term; it's not very useful. But a state of resourcefulness, of confidence in your own ability, of feeling like you can move forward no matter what. And it's super simple. It's a technique. You can look it up more if you're interested in it. It's called anchoring from neuro-linguistic programming. And all it requires is of you to you can do two things. You can either sit and close your eyes and think of a time where you felt the most confident, where you just achieved something and you felt amazing about yourself. Any time, or it can be real, it can be a memory, or it can be imagined. Go back to that time. Think about how you felt in that moment. Look through your own eyes, so you see yourself through your own eyes, and start to notice that image, to notice how you feel. And what you can do is to help to develop that image even further, is you can start to turn the brightness up. And we talked about this at the beginning. Turn the brightness up of this image that you have in your mind, this memory that you might have. Start to feel these positive emotions, whatever they are, start to fill your body. And as you do that, I want you to squeeze your thumb and ring finger together. As your and you can do it with either hand, whichever is perhaps your most dominant hand. It's not really important, but the point is to experience those powerful positive emotions. And as you experience those emotions, anchor it with a physical sensation. Okay. And you can reinforce this, so you can do this multiple times. And the other thing I would recommend is every time you feel really good, is to do this again when you're feeling good, and it reinforces the anchor. Now, what this will do, and you can test this out after you've done this, is you do that, you squeeze the same fingers together, excuse me, and you'll start to feel that emotion form up inside you. You'll start to feel that emotion wash over your body, and you'll be pulled back to that time where you're feeling confident, you're feeling powerful, like you could take on the world. And it's a great resource, because if you're starting to feel anxious, you're facing a big decision and you're not sure what to do, well, that's one way of bringing you back into a state of power and confidence. And then you can choose from that state how you want to respond. Because I think it's, we don't want to make decisions from a place of fear. We want to make decisions from a place of the type of person that we want to live in day to day. And if we're in a confident, powerful state, then we're going to make decisions based on wanting to maintain that state. And that's a really great way to do that. So yeah, I highly recommend you use that and you rehearse that, reinforce it, and it will serve you really, really well. Obviously, we've got a couple of people already left, but of course, I do have the option to work with me. As Bernie already said, I do have a community. Daisy, if you're interested in joining, you're more than welcome. It's called it's called Foundamental. It's also on School. And there's also the option, if you're wanting to explore a little bit more of what you're currently facing, I'd love to help you in any way I can. And there's an option just to book a half an hour call completely free, if you're interested in doing that as well.
Okay, thank you.
D, you're muted, buddy.
I'll be posting the replay on YouTube and in the community. So how do people find the community? Let's say, obviously, if you're in the community, they can click on your name and go to it. But other than that, how do people find it?
Well, either I can give you a link for it if you wanted to put that into the YouTube description. Otherwise, you can search up Foundamental on School, or my YouTube channel, Foundamental HQ.
Can you spell that for the
yes,
the
the
Americans?
Yeah. So it's founder, as in founder, like entrepreneurial founder. So FOUNDER, mental, MENTAL.
Oh, founder, just founder, and then mental.
Foundamental. One word, but it's
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if people if they want to work with you or book a call, how do they go about doing that?
So again, I can share the link. I have a calendar link that people can go and book. Find a time slot, book that. Maybe if it's all right with you, I can perhaps give you that to put in the description. or it's possible to contact me through my community as well and book a call.
So the main way, like if people want to get in touch with you, just join your community, talk to you there.
Yeah, yep. Or if,
and then what you could also do is when I post the replay on in the community, just comment with any links and I'll pin it. That way anybody that sees it in the community can easily just click. So I guess also like if you're watching on YouTube or something, you don't see it, you could just either look for Founder Mental, or if you join Undeterred and then look for this in the workshops, and it'd be easy to find it.
Perfect.
And then you can just change it any time that you want to change a link or something for you.
Yeah, sweet. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it that way.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you doing this, dude. This was really, really good, man. I knew it was going to be good, but it's just like even way better than what I even expected, even though we had a little technical difficulties, but we made it work, bro. We made it work.
Yeah, I'm glad. It was sort of what you were hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah, this was good, man. Anything else you want to add before we get off here?
No. It was a pleasure, Daisy. Thank you for being here all the way to the end. Really appreciate it.
Welcome. No,
Daisy's the best. She's awesome.
I look forward to engaging with you a bit in the Undeterred community a bit more as well. Looking forward.
Okay, I'll reach out. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, guys.
All right.
Appreciate you
Okay.
coming and tuning in.